In 1974, a woman named Marina Abramovic put on a performance known as Rhythm Zero and told spectators that she wouldn't move for 6 hours no matter what they did to her. She put 72 items on the table next to her and told her visitors to use them as they wish, whether it be to hurt her or to please her. The performance began calm, with people bringing her flowers and little things like that. However, at some point it became physical, with participants moving her body around and even cutting off her clothes with a sharp blade. Just 3 hours into her 6-hour performance, she had already endured multiple sexual assaults. By hour 4, the same blade that was used to cut off her clothes was used to cut her neck so that a participant could suck her blood. Toward the end of the performance, a loaded was held to Marina's head while a participant manipulated her fingers around the trigger. Thankfully, some people had morals and a fight actually broke out because her life was being threatened. Marina described it later saying, "What I learned was that if you leave it up to the audience, they can you. I felt violated. They cut up my clothes, stuck rose thorns in my stomach, one person held a gun to my head, and another took it away. It created an aggressive atmosphere. After exactly 6 hours as I planned, I stood up and started walking towards the audience. Everyone ran away to escape an actual confrontation." This performance kind of reminds me of the Stanford Prison Experiment, and although they're not the same thing at all, they more or less produce the same result. If you give people too much power, they will abuse it.
When a teenager was out late hiding from his parents, he spotted his dad driving past. He had no idea he just witnessed his dad disposing of his mum's dead body. It was the 25th of October 1987 in New Rockford, North Dakota. Kathy Bonderson was a 35-year-old nurse working in the local hospital. She was married to Robert Bonderson. At around 2 a.m. on the day in question, the pair were arguing over their teenage son, Jamie. He'd worried them by not returning home, and Kathy was particularly stressed because she was going to be late for work. It's believed that Robert looked for Jamie and was unsuccessful and returned home. At 2:30 a.m., Jamie, who was parked with his girlfriend out near a bridge, spotted Kathy's car. Now, Jamie actually ducked low to avoid being seen by his parents. He had no idea what he'd actually just witnessed. An hour later, Kathy's car was found on fire. Tragically, she was in the passenger seat, deceased. Now, a sheriff called Ed Alamaris claimed that the fire began due to a freak accident in which Kathy had crashed the car and it had set on fire. He said that her body must have been flung over to the passenger side. However, clues at the car indicated this was no accident. Her car keys were found undamaged on the floor of the car, which was strange as the whole of the interior had melted. There were also no sort of tire marks indicating that there had been any kind of crash. There was also no structural damage to the vehicle indicating that there had been any impact. There was also suspiciously a can of petrol found nearby. The autopsy also indicated that Kathy had been killed prior to the fire, as she had no carbon monoxide in her lungs. Injuries to her neck suggested she'd been murdered. Despite all of this, the stubborn sheriff decided not to change the ruling of the death from an accident to a homicide. Years later, in November 2005, the case was finally reopened. By this point, the sheriff had passed away. Investigators started looking into Kathy's husband, Robert. By this point, Robert had moved to Wyoming. Police re-interviewed him and he tellingly went missing as soon as they did so. It wasn't until April 2006 that police discovered his dead body in a remote cabin in the woods. He had taken his own life. Investigators determined that Robert was the real killer of Kathy. He had the opportunity to kill her and he also had a motive. It was revealed that he'd been seeing multiple different women while he was with Kathy. He'd also taken out a huge life insurance policy prior to her death. Jamie, Robert's son, also confirmed that it was Robert that was driving Kathy's car on the night of the murder. Jamie's girlfriend, who was with him at the time, also confirmed this.
Bizarre diseases science can't explain. Aquagenic urticaria, aka the water allergy, is an extremely rare disease that has only ever affected less than 100 people. Those who have it are affected within minutes of being exposed to water. Everything from rain to bathing to their own tears can cause them to break out into severe rash or hives. The most recent reported case was in 2009 when a 21-year-old woman from the UK had it. She could only drink Diet Coke and could could only shower for a maximum of 10 seconds a week. Sleeping sickness, also known as encephalitis lethargica, causes those affected to be unable to move despite being fully conscious, giving them a strange half-asleep appearance. It starts with a sore throat but ends in hallucinations, insanity, and an emotionless state. Those who are lucky enough to survive the disease live the rest of their lives as unresponsive vegetables who sometimes break out in violent fits.
Have you seen the Claire Miller TikToks?
Nah.
Really?
Nah, I never.
Claire Miller was like this really like innocent, like good girl that went to like public school, did everything right.
Yeah.
And then she would like post lip syncing and just the random dancing TikToks on her page. And one day it all switched. Like she became like a goth.
It became like emo and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
emo
Yeah,
TikToks,
yeah, yeah.
right? And everybody was saying that it was because she was getting bullied in school, right? So Bags, she has a sister, and her sister is disabled. And when she goes to bed, she starts seeing ghosts.
Yeah.
Because when she was bullied, she would cope it with horror movies. So she would go and like do that rabbit hole of the rituals and stuff. So ghosts are telling her, oh yeah, you should unalive yourself. You're not worthy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like she got so into it that she went into the kitchen, fam. She grabbed a knife and not even herself. She started stabbing the ghost, she said.
What the fuck?
So she kept stabbing it. 1 stab, 2 stab.
Yeah.
Fam, she shook out of it. It was her disabled sister
Damn.
that she was stabbing the whole time.
SCP-914, also known as the Clockwork Machine, is classified as a safe class anomaly. Special containment procedures. SCP-914 is housed in Research Cell 109B and is to be operated only by personnel who have submitted a formal request and received approval from Site Command. Description: SCP-914 is a large clockwork device encompassing 18 square meters, made up of millions of mechanical parts such as gears, belts, and pulleys, primarily constructed from tin and copper. The machine consists of 2 main chambers labeled intake and output, connected to the central mechanism by copper tubes. A selection knob on the machine allows for the setting of various refining levels: rough, coarse, 1-1, fine, and very fine. Addendum. Testing. Summary. Input: 1 kilos of steel. Setting: rough. Output: pile of steel chunks of various sizes, appearing to be cut by laser. Input: 1 kilo of steel. Setting: fine. Output: 1 kilo of steel carpet tacks. Input: 1 kilo of steel. Setting: very fine. Output: several gases that dissipated into the air quickly, and 1 gram of an unknown metal, resistant to heat of 50,000 degrees, impossible to bend or break with any force. Input: 1 wristwatch. Setting: coarse. Output: 1 completely disassembled wristwatch. Input: 1 cell phone. Setting: 1.1. Output: 1 cell phone, although different make and model. Input: 1 standard Colt Python revolver. Setting: very fine. Output: data expunged. Aforementioned completely disintegrated all matter in its line of fire. Object contained with high-density gamma waves. Input: 1 chimp. Setting: fine. Output: data expunged. Input: subject D187, male Caucasian, 28 years old, 63 kilo, 173 centimeter tall. Setting: very fine. Output: data expunged. Subject escaped from test chamber, killing 8 guards as well as Dr. and Dr. Lockdown initiated. Subject causes containment failure of 3 SCP areas in continued escape attempt. Special response team engages subject, resulting in severe wounding of subject, partial memory loss in special response team members, and corrosive damage to plumbing. Subject expired several hours later, dissolving into blue ash and blinding nearby research team.
Scary Things Hidden in Pictures, Part 1.
Things that bother you, they never bother me. I feel happy and fine.
Clown.
Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time. Haven't got a lot, I don't need a lot. Coffee's only a dime. Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time.
It's just a cigarette.
Just a cigarette, and it cannot be that bad.
Honey, don't you love me, and you know it makes me sad.
It's just a cigarette, like you always
Bear.
then I don't need them to be cool.
Daisy, Daisy.
Daisy,
Give me your answer, do.
I'm half crazy.
All for the love.
Don't scroll, wait for it.
A man reportedly shot a naked man who was assaulting a woman. A really disturbing event took place recently in Stanton in California. On the 2nd of June 2024, a taxi man was working while he reportedly witnessed a horrific incident. He was in the process of dropping one of his customers off after giving them a lift when he stated that he saw a naked man assaulting a female victim. Now, it is believed from his eyewitness account that the alleged attacker was 20 years old and the victim was a 60-year-old woman. Now, the taxi man reportedly saw the male actually on top of the female victim, beating her. He said that he therefore shot the attacker in order to make the attack stop. He then called police to explain to them what he'd done and why. Officers spoke to the shooter on the scene and actually questioned him about what had gone on and then later released him. The woman was treated for her injuries at the scene. The alleged attacker was obviously wounded in the shooting and was taken to a local hospital. Police state that at the moment they do consider him to be a suspect in the crime. Police are also investigating the possibility that the man who allegedly attacked the female may have been on substances at the time or suffering from mental health illness.
Las Vegas.
So there's a story that everyone in Stockton knows, and it's the Dancing with the Devil story. So I think back in 1800s, when the clubs were super popping, there was one guy came into a club, and I think there was 100 witnesses that peeped like what he was doing, right? So one night they interviewed a bystander that saw it, right? And the guy was like, there was a lot of beautiful women around, and as soon as this guy came in the bar, immediately every girl was like, damn, like who is that, right? He was moving mad mysterious. You know, in the club where those guys are just moving mad mysterious? So he goes to the bar and gets a drink and he's just cooling, right? Everyone's like, who is this guy? He looks like he's like from out of town. So he goes up and he's just chilling. He goes up to a group, I think of 4 women, and he's like, oh, you guys look beautiful. Can I dance with one of your friends? So the group separates. He's like in the middle of the crowd dancing with that one girl, right? So the bystanders over at the bar, he's looking around, they're vibing over there, right? He looks at them directly, and some reason, he looks down at the feet, and the guy is literally like floating. So the guy dancing is floating. All you can hear is a girl scream. Right? Lights turn off. The lights turn back on. All you see, the girl is on the floor, laying on her back, all cut up, and the guy
in the middle of a club.
In the middle of a club, and the guy is nowhere to be seen. I think it's called the Flamingo Club.
Do y'all remember this Call of Duty map? Well, this was actually a real place called Kowloon Walled City, and what you remember from the game is a pretty accurate representation of what it really was. By the late 1980s, this lawless and ungoverned city was the most densely populated place on Earth, with around 35,000 residents inside 350 interconnected buildings within a 6.4 acre territory. That's a population density of a whopping 1.9 million people per square kilometer versus New York City's 11,313 people per square kilometer. The construction was basically only improvisation, with additions made wherever possible, often ignoring building codes. They even had a makeshift yet complex network of pipes and wires snaked throughout the city to provide basic utilities. The economy of the walled city was as diverse as it was unregulated. There were factories pumping out products next to clinics offering budget healthcare provided by unlicensed professionals, all operating without any sanctions. Naturally, the city also contained gambling dens and other illegal activities. It's definitely not all dark though. Although it was a lawless city and did contain a lot of criminal activity, most residents didn't involve themselves in that crime and actually lived very peacefully. Some residents even formed groups to organize and improve daily life. The city was rich with tradition and culture. It evolved in a very unique way, and it was a place where people thrived when they otherwise had nowhere else to go. It was a very interesting place. In the early 90s, 90s, however, concerns over safety and order led to the decision to demolish this unplanned marvel. By 1994, the city was gone, and there is now a park where it once stood. Going back to the Call of Duty thing, I remember this being one of my least favorite maps at first, but it did eventually grow on me and became one of my favorites. Every time I visualize this place, I think of the story mission that went along with it, which to me was one of the most memorable.